Welcome back, Weirds and Weeaboos, to another Overwatch Yap. This time about Anran. Now you might be thinking, what the hell are you doing, Double Chin Doge 7? This is the day before a new hero release, and here you are yapping about Anran. Well, what can I say? I couldn't help myself. At the end of the season, I've been reflecting more and more on how the 5 new characters have landed, and I couldn't help but notice that Anran really didn't land very well. And I must admit, I'm tempted to do a little bit of an I told you so, only I'm not sure if I'm allowed to get the credit still, because I told you so in a video that I uploaded unlisted to my channel, but decided wasn't interesting enough to actually make public, and so I never actually publicly uploaded it for everyone to see. That being said, in case you're going to call me on my BS, I will link the video in the description of this one, if you don't believe me. That was a video where I gave my first thoughts and impressions on Anran. Sometimes when a new character comes out, I'll record a video, sometimes even edit it. In this case, I actually edited it and even made a thumbnail for it. I was right at the last step before I'd upload it. But then, on rewatch, I'll think, I don't know, do I have much of value to say here? Sometimes, while I'm recording a video, I'll think I'm not sure if this is a great one, but then when I rewatch it, at least to my own taste, I'm like, nah, actually, I had some good stuff to say there, I'll upload it. But sometimes the opposite can happen. Sometimes I can kind of think I'm cooking while I'm talking, and then when I watch it back, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure about this one. It was kind of a shame, though, because there were 2 aspects of the video I did feel were quite interesting. It's just that they didn't take up a lot of the runtime, and the rest of it kind of felt like filler, where I don't even think I articulated myself all too well. And those 2 aspects were 1, the perks that you could choose from, and 2, the reason why I thought, even before her official release, only during the playtest, that Anran was going to be overrated and underwhelming. Now, obviously, that take has been proven correct by time, but I'll even put my hands up. As easy it would be to take the dub and say, yeah, I told you, you idiots, I predicted it. Even I am a little flabbergasted by how useless Anran has been. Like, I laid out all the logic for why this happened before it even happened, but even then there was that little nagging part of me that told me, I mean, she can't be that bad, right? That I caved into. At least to some extent, because I still thought she was going to have her niche, and I don't even know if she has that. So, for those of you unfamiliar, Anran is a new hero in Season 1, they are one of the 5 new heroes, and despite being presented as one of the most high-skill, high-value ceiling heroes, even at the top levels of play, Anran is basically non-existent right now. If you're talking tournament play, where it's more coordinated, Anran has literally seen no play at all, I'm pretty sure, aside from the rounds where, due to the rule set, they are forced to use the new characters, including Anran. So if the only time they're ever playing Anran is when the rules literally say, screw you, you have to play Anran, that really says, wow, pro teams do not want to play Anran. Anran sucks for them. And when it comes to actual just ranked, playing the game, or even just quick play, Anran seems to be an endangered species. I've even heard from some people who have decided to dedicate themselves to the character out of curiosity, and they've almost all had frustrating experiences where they feel the character feels underwhelming, and constantly promises that she has potential, promises that, trust me bro, I can be good, this can be a good character, but time and time again, even when you are doing well at the character, she just disappoints in terms of the reward you get. And although you can clearly see Anran hasn't really interested me, I made no secret about the fact in the video that Anran was the character I was the least interested in out of the 5 coming in Season 1, so as you can see, I admit I have not played her a whole lot. I did experience moderate success with her, she does have a relatively decent win rate for me right now. I just found her also equally frustrating to play. A lot of games were games where I basically could never do cool stuff or have the big, cool, explosive play, but I could still be effective for my team, but mostly just by doing the boring grunt work no one wants to do, like soft diving backlines knowing full well you're not going to get a kill, but just doing it to force cooldowns and maybe get a teeny tiny little crumb of space on repeat without dying. That sucks, but I mean, it works. But enough about all this. What was my problem with Anran, and why did I predict that she was going to be pretty damn bad and very overrated by the community before she was even officially released? How did I know? Well, what gave it away for me was a kind of logic that, honestly, I feel like the longer this game exists, the more and more we're going to have to pay attention to it. In the early days, something like this would be practically irrelevant because of the fact the cast used to be so much smaller. But today, we are 1 day away from Overwatch's 51st hero. We have a lot of characters. And the problem with Anran is, there is just no reason to play her. And I know that sounds very vague, but let me be more specific. When I say there is just no reason to play her, I don't mean 'cause she's bad. I mean she doesn't do anything other characters don't already do. Most people seem to have taken to comparing Anran to Genji, and I remember when Anran first released, it was that Anran was Genji 2.0, the better Genji, poor Genji getting outclassed by Anran. But from day one, I didn't fall for that. From day one, I said, I swear Genji's just better Anran. You got it the wrong way round. Anran sucks. Genji's just better Anran. Now, of course, it's always a little bit awkward when you're doing direct one-to-one comparisons. There's always differences. But there are a lot of characters in Anran's sphere of influence here. I think Anran could also be compared to a slower, less lethal, but more flexible Tracer with more vertical mobility. Or she could be compared to something like a Venture. Or even, and I know this one is less intuitive, I personally think the best comparison, as someone with a lot of experience on Sombra, is Sombra. I think that Anran actually plays more closely to Sombra than she does Genji, actually, as unintuitive as that might seem. But frankly, to be fair, she has a lot of similarities to all these characters. Now, I want to stress, when I keep digging at Anran's design, it's not necessarily because she's super poorly designed necessarily. Technically speaking, I actually think Anran's a good, healthy, fun design. But then, why do I not like her design then? I just said it's good and healthy and fun. But it's the problem of, okay, but why does it exist? Like, okay, it's good and healthy and fun because it's copying other characters that are already good and healthy and fun, like Genji, like Tracer, like Sombra. Yes, you're going to crucify me for saying that, but I will argue to the grave that Sombra in her current state is honestly more fair than 90% of other DPS in the game. I don't even know why I bother opening a can of worms like that in a video where I can't possibly address it. That's like a 3-hour video. Anyway, back on topic. Anran is copying the designs of really well-made heroes, which sounds like a good idea, but then what's the spin on it? Why am I playing Anran rather than Tracer? Why am I playing Anran rather than Genji? Why am I playing Anran rather than Sombra? And when the game had less characters, you didn't have to worry about this quite as much. Not only because there's less characters, there's less things that could already have been done in the game, but on top of that, even if you made a character that does the same thing as another character, they could do it in different ways, and that could be good enough. And to be fair, if you want to get into the minutiae, Anran does do some things in different ways. If you're saying Anran's just a garbage Tracer, then I could say, hey, but she has vertical mobility when Tracer doesn't, and she has a better ability to poke. If you wanted to say that Anran was just a garbage version of Genji, you could say, well, hang on a minute, Genji needs to dash reset to get out, whereas Anran doesn't necessarily need an elim to escape because she just has 2 charges of her dash. There are differences, but you might notice for a lot of these differences, if those differences matter, you have multiple options, and a lot of times, the other options are better tools for the job. If you are flanking on Tracer, and your problem is you need vertical mobility, you need to swap off Tracer and pick someone who can get to high ground more easily, then you can pick Sombra or Genji. Now, what are the chances that Anran is better than both Sombra and Genji in that situation? I would say both Sombra and Genji can kill faster than Anran can, which is embarrassing, by the way. I would say that Sombra has better escape tools by a small margin. I would say that Genji is more durable if you're looking for just pure ability to tank and use invincibility frames with deflect. And if you're talking about pure ultimate power, to be fair, Anran's got a better ultimate than most flankers do, but do you know which flanker has the best ultimate in the game for a flanker? It's Sombra. And again, Sombra is ticking a lot of the boxes you would want in a high verticality flanker character. Again, I don't think the Genji comparison is bad, but this is actually why I think the Sombra one is a little bit better. I know that Sombra doesn't have 2 charges of Translocator, but it's kind of split into 2 parts. The engage with the teleport and the disengage with the invisibility sprint. In that way, I would argue it's very similar to how you would use your dashes with Anran, just split across 2 different kinds of ability packed into 1 cooldown, rather than it being 2 charges with the exact same cooldown. In some way, that actually gives Sombra more flexibility than Anran has. Similarly to Sombra as well, Anran is a flanker that has a better ability to poke than most flankers, even if they're still best used in close range. Exactly the same with Sombra, a character who is better than most flankers at medium to long range, but is still intended to be most effective at close range. Also, similarly to how Sombra needs to hack a target to amplify her damage versus them, and amplify the effectiveness of her virus, Anran has to set a target on fire to be able to deal critical hits with her right click to be able to close out quick kills. And most importantly, like I said, most flankers in this game don't have great ultimates, but Anran and Sombra both have some of the best ultimates in the game on a flanker. It's just a shame that EMP is still better than Vermilion Ascent, even if Vermilion Ascent is better than something like a Pulse Bomb, and usually better than a Blade. Obviously, ult combos might have something to say about that, but if you're talking about using a standalone ult, I think that Vermilion Ascent is probably better than Blade in most cases. Oh yeah, side note, I know you're probably wondering, but what about Vermilion Revival? If you weren't aware, don't use it. Okay, I'm joking a little, obviously. You can probably find some situations where it's worth it, but rule of thumb, you know the 80-20 rule? Apply it to Anran. If you are using your Vermilion Revival more than 20% of the time, you're probably throwing. Your Vermilion Revival sucks, and you should only use it if the res would actually flip a team fight right now. Otherwise, complete throw to burn your ultimate on that. Vermilion Ascent usually leads to like half a team dying, and it's usually the back line. That's usually a team fight win. Like, you can win team fights off of nothing but Vermilion Ascent. Meanwhile, Vermilion Revival does basically no damage, knocks people away from you rather than towards you like Vermilion Ascent does, making it harder for you to follow it up. And on top of that, let's be real, half the time you use it, you res and then you die again instantly. Congratulations. So yeah, let's just basically pretend Vermilion Revival doesn't exist for this, because honestly, if you're playing Anran properly, it borderline doesn't. All this just leads me to the question of, why would you play Anran? And I don't really have an answer. Why would you play Anran? The crazy part is, she's still taking cues from all these strong, high-skill characters, where just about anyone who's good enough on them can make them work, like Sombra, like Tracer, like Genji. So it's not to say you can't make Anran work, you can. It's just, why would you? No, serious question, why would you? Why would you sit down and put hours upon hours into learning Anran, when you could learn Tracer and just do more, when you can learn Sombra and just simply do more, or when you could learn Genji and, again, just simply do more? I am not joking. I am trying to think, and the only thing I consider that Anran has that I suppose is kind of unique, I will say the way that Anran goes for kills is very front-loaded, as in, the way you usually go for kills with Anran is you dash into someone, and then you hit your, Dancing Blaze, and you get bonus free damage off of that, and then you start shooting them and setting them on fire and then right-clicking them. Now, the actual shooting them and right-clicking them doesn't really do a lot of damage very quick for an explosive flanker like she's supposed to be, and that's part of the problem with her. But the abilities, they don't technically do a lot of damage, but to say they are no-aim, borderline inescapable, uncounterable forms of dealing damage, it's actually quite a lot. Essentially, the argument I'm making here is the one thing that I could see as Anran's niche is the fact that, to be fair, if you just need to deal, about 100-ish unblockable, unpreventable damage to someone, and you don't really need follow-up, you just need to burst them with, hey, I'm going to hit you with 100 damage and there's basically nothing you can do about it, then Anran's pretty good at that. Because there's very little you can do, especially if you're someone like a support with low mobility, to avoid just an Anran dashing into your face and immediately hitting the dance and killing you while they're invincible. In practice, that's not very relevant because it's only about 100 damage, and most of the time those people are going to have more than 100 health. But hey, if you can contrive a situation where you're consistently getting people down to 100 health, and the Anran can just run in and blow all their cooldowns to insta-kill someone without even having to land a shot, then yeah, Anran starts to feel very oppressive and strong. But of course, that's not really a very realistic or common scenario. I think this is part of why people joke about Anran being potential woman, saying she could get a kill, she could do so much, she could go on a crazy flank, but in reality she doesn't. Because she can hit people with this sudden burst of practically unpreventable, unblockable damage. She can go deep. She can get away with some ridiculous stuff in terms of positioning and where she takes fights. But then when she actually arrives in the fight, she does a big combo, she does a bunch of upfront damage, it doesn't actually do all the work, and then she uses her weapon and it sucks. And of course, because you're this fast, bursty flanker, if you're not killing fast enough, that's just it. You just don't get the kill. And I mean, you can still get value on the character by causing so much disruption in the enemy backline that they can't really function in holding the front line. That's often how I've had to use Anran. I've had to basically accept I am never going to get to have fun on this character for the most part. I am never going to get to have these big explosive plays. I'm going to have to spend the whole game being an annoying little gnat on the enemy backline that never dies but also never kills anyone. Just constantly threatens, oh, I'm going to kill him. Oh, I'm going to kill... No, okay, right. You used all your cooldowns. I'm not going to kill you now. Oh, but I'm coming back. I'm going to kill you. Oh, no, I'm not going to fall for that. I'm not dying, I'm not feeding today, but oh, I'm going to kill you! And I do like the back and forth of this game, but there's a certain point where eventually it just becomes ridiculous. Like, don't get me wrong, I like characters where you can take fights you know you can't win, but the point isn't to win them. The point is that forcing that fight puts the enemy team in a disadvantageous position, and that you know that you have the smarts to get out before you die. I do like that strategic aspect of Overwatch, but there is definitely a problem when that's all a character can do. When all they can do is annoy the enemies while being annoyed themselves, because they know they're never closing out a kill, like, ever. They're just doing a bunch of little taps and pokes and a bit of spooks and a bit of, "Ooh, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, I'm gonna kill you. Oh, I really will do it this time. Oh, I'm crazy. I'll do it. Oh, no. I'm saying I won't do that." Either way, it's safe to say, I feel like Anran flopped purely just because she didn't find a niche. Like, seriously, Anran isn't really that bad in a vacuum. If I forced you into Anran jail and you had to play a bunch of games with Anran, I'm sure you could make her work. Hell, I'll be honest with you, Emre's been a lot more relevant to the meta than Anran has, and yet, currently Emre is my lowest win rate hero ever. I don't want to talk about it. Meanwhile, Anran, this garbage character that no one's playing and no one wants to play, is somehow a character I'm maintaining about a 55-56% win rate with, which is, you know, nothing crazy, but it's pretty damn good. It's above average. And I think a lot of that is because I would have that kind of win rate on a Tracer or Genji or Sombra-like character anyway. If anything, I would have a higher one on a character like Sombra, Tracer, or Genji that can just do more and I'm more confident on. Even if there are characters that are weaker than Anran, if there are characters that are weaker than Anran but do things that she doesn't and no one else does, those characters are going to be more relevant to the meta than Anran is. Because at least those characters that are weaker than her have a purpose. They do something. Anran just does not do anything. When you pick Anran, you're just saying, I want to play Sombra, but I don't want to be good. When you pick Anran, you're just saying, I want to play Sombra without hack and with a shittier ultimate. Or if you prefer the other analogy, I want to play Genji, but I can't kill things. I think a great example of this argument is Freya, actually. Now, I'll admit, I'm a little biased. I am usually very weak on my main DPS, but Freya is one of the few main DPS I really broke through with. I do very well with Freya, I'm proud to say. I put a lot of time into practicing her, and she ended up being the most fun main DPS in the game for me by a long shot. I really enjoy playing her, and I've really gotten a lot better with her over the months. So I admit, I'm a little biased. But right now, speaking factually, Freya is consistently one of, if not the lowest win rate hero in the game. Now, part of that is just because she's hard, and she's been nerfed recently. If you're good enough with Freya, you can still definitely win with Freya. It's just harder than it used to be. And I really do think that's not just a cope. I really think for people who know what they're doing on Freya, Freya's still fine right now. But I'll admit, statistically speaking, Freya sucks right now. But you know what? Freya is still seeing more play than someone like Anran, especially at the pro level, in tournaments. And why is that? I mean, you could say it's because she's such a high-skill character, but so is Anran. Now, in fairness, if you had to ask which is more high-skill, Freya or Anran, that's a bit of a tougher question, and I might lean towards Freya. But honestly, it's not a big difference. They're both pretty high-skill. So clearly skill ceiling doesn't really describe the discrepancy here. No, I think the real difference here is that Freya has a purpose. Freya does something no other character in the game does, and so even if she sucks right now and is weak, if you need what Freya brings to the table, you have to pick Freya. Freya's main draw is that unlike most main DPS, who have to hold an angle with their life to be able to actually consistently put out damage, and if they get pushed on that angle and dove and they do not win the fight, they just explode and die, Freya has the ability to use her extreme mobility for a main DPS to stall out and out-rotate dives with ease, so it's really, really hard to remove her for an angle, and on top of that, she can use her mobility to create angles practically out of thin air in places where no other main DPS could play. This is an insane amount of unique and irreplaceable value. No character in the game can do what Freya can do. You can say we've had flying characters before, but Echo and Pharah are flex DPS. Freya is a main DPS. Yes, she's not quite hit scan, but the fact she's much closer to being a hit scan means that she can actually more consistently put out pressure from long range. That is a unique and valuable thing, and for those who know how to abuse it, it means that even when Freya sucks, she's still kinda goated if you know what you're doing. But then there's Anran. And you can be good at Anran, and you can push Anran, and you can do better with Anran than you would expect, even in a situation where she's not doing super great. But at the end of the day, why are you just not putting that effort into mastering Sombra, Tracer, or Genji if they literally just do Anran but better? No one does Freya but better. As I say, Echo and Pharah, completely different playstyle. But Freya gets to remain relevant even as her win rate plummets because she brings something that's one of a kind to the game. Like I say, as this roster continues to expand, this is going to be a larger and larger concern that developers are going to have to wrangle with more and more often. That you have so many options to fill these archetypes that when you add a new option, you need to give players a reason. Why do we play this character? And to be fair, while some people might grumble that they've already been bad about this in the past, I would actually say they've generally done a good job with this in the past. Ultimately because even just small differences can have a big effect sometimes. And so there are a lot of characters that are new characters that you could argue play very similarly to other characters, but the specific ways in which they achieve their game plan, while the differences can seem small from a distance, actually sitting down playing them, it can feel like you're playing a completely different game. I mean, Wrecking Ball and Winston serve basically the same role, and they often have overlapping skill sets. It's very common for Wrecking Ball players and Winston players to be one in the same. I am literally one of those people. And yet, no one's going to sit here and tell me that Wrecking Ball is a Winston clone. They play so insanely different in the actual execution that it's pretty easy to see they're doing the same archetype, but there's reasons you pick Winston and there's reasons you pick Wrecking Ball. If you are getting poked out while staging way too much, then you can't really use Winston, whereas Wrecking Ball can use his absolutely intense mobility and his ability to grapple onto ceilings to stage a lot more easily and in much less punishable ways. At the same time though, if you need to brute force your way through a choke, while neither are ideal, Winston has more of an ability to find his way through a choke using his cleaving electric damage that completely bypasses barriers, and just generally the fact that with his bubble he's more durable than Wrecking Ball and more able to survive standing in one spot for a few seconds, whereas Wrecking Ball is just going to get battered around like a ball. There's important differences here. They fulfill similar roles, but in practice they actually do such different things. But what does Anran have that makes her different? That she can set people on fire? This is why whenever a new character comes out, I tend to put all the focus on what do they do. I'm not even necessarily saying I'm always right about this. I'll put my hands up. I pulled this card on Wu Yang. I said, what does Wu Yang do? Because I didn't really see the vision. And obviously, I ended up being a little wrong. I still think that I was proven a little bit right on Wu Yang being a bit overrated at the time, because of the fact that my argument was, I swear Lucio Kiri is just better than Wu Yang Kiri. And sure enough, Lucio Kiri was better than Wu Yang Kiri. But to be fair, Wu Yang Kiri was better than I gave it credit for, and Wu Yang in general was a better support than I thought he was going to be in terms of strength, and also in terms of utility. I really thought for the most part his bending gimmick was just a way to get more consistent damage output, and I thought that damage output was just going to be stat farming that wouldn't really change the outcome of a game too much. But what I didn't realize is specifically how good it is at poking out flankers that are trying to stage, as they often have to use shallow pieces of cover while on the approach, and obviously you can circumvent shallow cover with Wu Yang's bubbles. Deeper cover it doesn't work with, which is part of the reason why I wasn't all that convinced Wu Yang would make a big difference. But obviously it's usually only the backliners that have the luxury of abusing deeper cover. A lot of the times when you're actually on the front lines or you're flanking around the back lines, you've got to be using much more shallow angles for cover, and that makes it way easier for Wu Yang to bend around the corner and get the kill, or at least poke you out to force you to not be able to dive. So yeah, I'm not always right about this. Whenever I say a character like doesn't do anything, it might turn out they do a thing and we just need to find it. It might turn out that something that they do that doesn't really seem all that different from what we already have does end up finding value, like what happened with Wu Yang. But I mean, it was pretty obvious to see that Anran really didn't do anything new, and the fact that she didn't was the exact reason why no one decided to actually really touch her. I mean, for the longest time this has been a concern in the back of my head, but I think this is the most blatant example we've ever seen. Like, genuinely. I don't think I could ask for a more perfect example of exactly this problem. I kind of thought about making a similar video to this about previous heroes before, but usually they had enough of a niche that even when sometimes they felt a bit useless, I didn't really have the guts to really send it and say, you see, this is an example of us making characters that don't have a place, because usually they'd eventually find something. But right now, I mean, we've had a full season, and Anran's just kind of, you know, not much of a player base. Most of her player base is not happy about the state of her, and no competitive play. All that said, that concludes this Overwatch Yap session. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.